I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to have you along as well. Today is Friday, Good Friday, April 18th, 2025. And as always, we promise robust conversation. Friday, we call this program the Healing Circle, and I'm joined by my co host and my leader, Dr. BraVada Garrett-Akinsanya. And we start this in a certain way. To center the conversation in African values. Dr. B, good afternoon. Welcome once again. So good to see you. I want to bring you on, and
I'm in the
there we go.
wilderness.
There we go.
Good afternoon and happy Good Friday to those of us who celebrate this Christian gift of Friday before Easter. I'm just really glad to be here and to ask people to join us in our healing circle. So I appreciate you pitching it to me, and I'll just get us started as we kind of prepare to be in this space, especially today as we think about spirituality, reflections on Easter, renewal, and restorative faith. So as we talk today, my hope is that people will hear the deeper meaning of our space in humanity, the feeling of Ubuntu, of all of us being connected. So in this ritual of beginning our healing circle, we ask people to imagine that you're in a circle. Although our circle is virtual, we're all in it. And just imagine that you're in that circle. And in the circle, the reason we use it is because when there's a circle, there's no beginning, no end, no top, and no bottom. And everyone in the circle has equal access to the center, which is the space of voice and power. We also, in this circle, honor our elders. Those are the shoulders that we stand on. Somebody worked our way, hoped our way, and prayed our way into existence. So we sit here, the embodiment of generations of hopes and dreams. Then we also honor our ancestors, because our ancestors were the shoulders that our elders stood on. And as we honor their sacrifices, their gifts to us, we also recognize that we honor our ancestors because they are closest to our Creator. So, in this space, as African people, we are orderly. So, we use a virtual talking stick. And although we're not physically in the same space, if you in the audience want to say something, please feel free to let us know and we'll get you in and answer your question or have you to join us in this dialogue. So as the talking stick goes from one person to the next, the belief we have is that if the spirit moves and you need to stick, you just ask for it and it shall be given. So we will move into looking in this space to your right, noticing that you're safe. Looking to your left, just notice that you're safe. And look behind you, making sure that you feel safe. Notice your feet on the ground and the chair that's holding you. Be present in the now so that you can capture the healing and the gifts that are about to be given. We ask you to inhale deeply, and as you exhale, let go of all stress and worry. Inhale once again, filling your lungs and your abdomen with life-giving air. And exhaling all that you don't need. And in this space, as we are present, we will talk about restorative faith, our communities, where we came from, how we are here, and what it is our job to do. And with that, we say, Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. So welcome to the Healing Circle. Passing the stick back to you, Baba Al. so that we can continue with the introductions of the rest of our members in this circle today. And I give you the talking stick. There you go.
I got it. Thank you, Dr. B. Well, let's bring in our colleagues today. First of all, your partner, Akinsanya, is here. Brother Yeli, good to see you as always. And let me say, in the spirit of disclosure, my relationship with the Akinsanyas is a multifaceted, many touch points. I tell people proudly that I serve on the board as board chair of the African American Child Wellness Institute. So I'm working with ACWI on a regular basis. And I tell people too that I have, that ACWI is a customer of mine. They run advertising every week in Insight News. So I appreciate them and thank them for being loyal, faithful, and large customers. That's business that means a lot to my business. And finally, I'm a customer of theirs. I am a client, and I always want to tell Black men in particular, Black people in general, and everybody more broadly, therapy works. It's a good thing, and that we all need help. I need help. That's what I know. And so when I introduced my concerns to them years ago, they connected me to one of the professionals on their team, and I've had a multi-year weekly therapy. And I tell you, it keeps me going. It kept me going through discovering and working through congestive heart failure, discovering and working through prostate cancer, and moving on my journey to continual healing and continually seeking to succeed and being a decent human being. So that's been my goal. Therapy works, and thank you, Yeli and Dr. B, for all you do in creating this organization, this institution, this movement, the African American Child Wellness Institute. Well, we also have joining us today, Brother Dr. Daryl Gillespie, and I'll let him introduce all the things that he does, but I know him both as a role as a spiritual leader in our community, a religious church leader in our community, as a community activist, and also a professional in the therapy healing movement as well. Brother Daryl, good to see you. Let's bring you into the screen here. There we go. And then I want to bring in one of my colleagues and friends, Brother Tom Gata. And Tom Gata is the editor and owner of Mshali, but he himself is a movement building bridges, creating awareness, creating opportunities, telling the truth, explaining our version of what happened and why it happened and what must happen, speaking from the historical and cultural wellspring of knowledge and addressing, elevating the power that we have to be our best selves in the world. So Tom Gata is here. So here's what I hope will happen in the course of this conversation. I think we obviously, Dr. B and Dr. Daryl, want to talk about the season and what it means, what redemption means, what resurrection means, what the impact of this view and vision is for humanity and for our people, both here in Twin Cities and the Black experience in this country, but also with Africans around the world. And you know, when I speak of Africans around the world, my view is expansive and inclusive. And so every human being on the planet, from my point of view, is an African, just like me. Okay. Then, so I want to talk about that, the season and, you know, spring, how we approach that in traditional culture, in our current religious experiences. And then the other thing I've been fascinated about, that I've been talking to Brother Tom Gata about regularly, is I'm so fascinated by what I'm watching on YouTube, and that is the emergence of a young leader and a young movement out of Burkina Faso, who's been in partnership with the leaders. These are military leaders that have seized power, but differently, I think. You know, time will tell. In Burkina Faso, and that's Captain Ibrahim Traore, and his colleagues are the leaders of Mali and Niger. And so the press that's coming out of Burkina Faso is so wonderful and so inspiring. It makes you wonder, can this be real? And then it makes you wonder, if it is real, how long will it be before they kill him? And so before we came on the show today, I had this thought, and I didn't know how it was going to come out, but I see it now as I'm speaking. And that is that they had an idea that they would and should exercise power over us. And when from among us a voice rose, they crucified him. Mm-hmm. That's a point of entry. And so I fear the crucifixion for Captain Traore. I fear the crucifixion of political leaders here in Minnesota right now. Mm-hmm. I fear the crucifixion of business and social movements in this country and around the world. I fear, but beneath and beyond and greater than the fear is this idea that redemption is at hand, mm-hmm. and that resurrection is real, and that we will survive because it's what we've done. We've been here before, and we continue. We continue. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to drop it to pass the talking stick to Brother Daryl. Anything that I'm saying, Daryl, take it from there.
Wow. You going to throw that to me like that?
He knows you can receive it. That's why he's throwing it to you.
That's true.
Well, everybody, my name is Daryl Gillespie. I am the pastor of Proverbs Christian Fellowship located at 3210 Oliver Avenue in North Minneapolis. I'm also a therapist with the African American Child Wellness Institute. So as you were talking, even when asked to be on the show, the word the prefix re. So whenever you think about you think about doing something over again. And so to do something. And so again, this is a season. Today is Good Friday, and to me, I think this is the Christians' New Year, or this is like the Christians' Christmas. Mm-hmm. This is the time that tells us who we are. Christ dying on the cross and Christ doing what he did to redeem us. So something had to be paid, and we got something back in return. And so I will quickly say, whenever I'm trying to preach, there's a dichotomy going on. So one thing, I'm coming from a spiritual lens, but I have to come from a psychological lens, because we have to understand the importance of the symbolism in death. And I think when we think about dying to something, we're going and growing to live for something else. So when you talk about how we do what we do, and how everything we do affects the other. Dr. B used the word Ubuntu. I am because we are. So I understand the impact of what I am doing in my life that affects all four of you all. We don't have to talk every day. We don't have to be around each other, but it is impacting what's going on in our lives. And so it behooves me to be the best that I can be. And so I think as we had this conversation today, we have to talk about the importance of dying a death that brings life. And I think a lot of people don't want to die a death. And you think about the Lent season. The Lent season is a time of reflection. How do we become aware of what's really going on? And I'm gonna say, Baba Al, I don't want to beat the church up today, but I think the church can sometimes be in psychological denial. We're so spiritual that we just have no earthly or human understanding of what's really going on in our lives. And we have so many things that need to die psychologically in our bodies, in our minds, that need to be resurrected in a different kind of way. And I don't know if we always understand the connection of, and so as we were getting ready to come on, then I'll shut up. You talked about how do we gather all these different faith leaders that have different theological beliefs. And I think one of the ways we can do that, and we'll probably talk about it later, is we have to die to our theological practices that isolate people who think differently from us. And I'll explain that later, but I'll give it back to you, Baba.
Let me pass it straight over to Brother Yelly. Brother Yelly, what are your thoughts, just impressions?
Well, I'm not a pastor. I cannot be a pastor, and I cannot even contemplate being one, because for those that are called for that purpose, they are truly special. And Pastor Gillespie and all the religious leaders in the world, I thank you for your contribution, and we'll continue to depend on you for your spiritual leadership. Having said that, from political point of view, oh yes, I want to come from that angle. I was born into a very political family, and I wear that badge very proudly. Having said that, Mr. McFarlane mentioned prosecution of our political leaders. That's where I'm going to go. You know, we've been reading about Senate President Bobby Champion, and we just got introduced again about brother Attorney General Keith Ellison. Okay, let's look at those two, and I'll do that like a few seconds. I think people who are trying to prosecute Senator Bobby Champion, they better watch it, because every single one of those senators or legislators do exactly what they are accusing him of doing. How will he know every single person that he works with, or a legislator works with? How will you know what they are doing and what they are not doing? That's one thing I'm not going to touch much on him, but we pray for him. We support what he's doing. He's a true leader of the community. And I would just say to those legislators, like Dr. B always say, dogs don't bark at parked cars. They only bark at you when you're going somewhere. Senator Bobby Champion is going to a lot of beautiful, lofty places. And the people who are trying to bark at him, you need to watch it. Because people who live in glass houses shouldn't be throwing stones.
Amen.
I hope they will, they will realize that and back off. Then brother Keith Ellison, this man has been miraculous in what he's doing at the Attorney General's office. So they expect him to know every single person that contributes to his campaign. When you can just go to any legislator's website and click donate. How are you supposed to monitor everybody that contributes to your, even if you have bad, good, or great people contributing to your, it's not your responsibility to monitor their behavior. So why are you trying to criticize him for one or two people who happen to have been caught in some controversies contributing to his campaign? Again, people or dogs don't bark at parked cars. They only bark at you when you go in places. The brother has moved from being a city council member to House of Representative member, now to Attorney General of the great state of Minnesota. If you don't call that move going places, then you need to basically look at the dictionary and understand what going places really means. Having said that, I'm going to hand the talking stick back to Brother Al. Papa, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Yelly. And I brought it up, the challenges that we experience locally and internationally. And I want to say that I've invited a colleague of ours, Reverend Alfred Babington Johnson, to join me on the Tuesday broadcast coming up.
Okay.
He's agreed when we're going to be both live streaming and broadcasting live on KFAI radio, the Tuesday version. And he's going to be sharing a letter that he has written that's signed by members of the leadership community about this. It's not new. The slights being pushed towards Senate President Bobby Champion. So I just want to say that will be our show Tuesday. And after that show, we'll be publishing the letter in the newspaper. And it'll give us time to collect a number of voices. Our goal is to be, as a newspaper, fair and balanced and to seek truth. But we also know that historically systems and oppressors have used every tool available to destroy us, and we must resist and tell the truth. So let me bring Tom Gatai in. Tom, I mentioned at the beginning that I've been so fascinated with monitoring on YouTube the emergence of Ibrahim Traore. Could you give context to that? And when we talked in the past, I think you sensed, and maybe I sensed in you, number one, a sense of hopefulness in young Africa. Africa is a young world. The population of the continent is young. And so the future of the world belongs to the young people, and the young in Africa will inherit our belief. So how do we watch the development of hope and opportunity and feel like as that develops, it will bypass what has happened in the past generation, and that has been the stifling of hope and the channeling of the potential of the people through neo-colonial systems that existed to preserve white power, European power in African communities, African cultures, and in systems that were created by Europeans for European wealth and power. One of the things I hear from Captain Traore, he talks about three things that are critically important for African people. I think one, he said, was to destroy cowardice. We have to destroy the spirit, the practice of cowardice in our culture. Two, I think he said, three was incompetence. And I forgot what number two was. I'm just calling this from memory. But these were broad themes that are character. And he's calling for the emergence of our true character. And that true character will decimate the artificial barriers that we call borders and that we call European created nations. And as that is decimated, emerging will be the true African people. And that's a people, he said, integration. His statement of integration, meaning integrating all of the people of the African continent and all of the people of the African diaspora. And when we begin to see ourselves connected and have the capacity through technology to actually do business with each other globally, we will have changed the entire thing, and we will have moved to capturing our resources, both physical and human, mental, genius resources for the development of our own people. Tom Gatai, I'm gonna hand the talk. Take it wherever you want to, brother.
Thank you. You put it very well there, Brother Al. So there's a lot of things happening in Africa, and I think you quoted Traore, the current Burkina Faso leader. Military, people keep saying military, but really, I mean, I will say that the thing that set the path for people like Traore to take over last year were all if you follow the continent last year, there was a lot of youth movements that were taking place on the continent, demonstrations, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, people, the youth are just tired because what was happening was, the rulers, the leaders in Africa for a long time, they have just, taken advantage of the situation on the continent. They take advantage of what we call the tribal. The tribal differences within the continent, like if you take one country, for example, you'll find, in Africa, we have a lot of tribes, for example, but you find these politicians, instead of actually providing leadership for their respective countries, they get busy trying to stay in power, and the way they stay in power is trying to take advantage of those ethnic divisions. Okay, so they take care of those ethnic divisions, while at the same time pillaging and just basically looting the coffers, the treasury coffers of the different African countries. Take, for example, in Kenya and in Nigeria, I think especially in Kenya, they were just, they are looting, but then also they want to overtax people. Okay, so the taxing situation actually in these countries is what, especially in Kenya, I think, is what ignited people going on the streets. So this was actually I think, a very revolutionary times on the continent, very much inspired by the youth. And the reason the youth are rising up is because at some point you just get tired. You find the continent made a lot of investments, for example, in a university education, for example, K-12 education over the last 3-4 decades. But now you find, a lot of people are graduating university, for example, different colleges, different tech schools, and they're just staying home. There are no jobs to absorb these people. There are no opportunities for them to start business, for example, because I'm sure not everybody needs to be employed, but then also they need to be able to set the table so that it's easier for these young people to get into some kind of trade or business or stuff like that. So it just basically has reached a point where people are just tired. You find a lot of leaders just basically flaunting the wealth that you will find most of the time is stolen wealth. And on the continent right now, they just say that the youth are fearless. Okay, they do not care anymore. They are putting their lives on the line. That's why they're going on the streets. And those are the things that have paved the way. There is a time when people used to recoil when they hear, "Oh my God, another military leader has taken over." But the recoiling this time is just from the West, for example. If you go on the ground, you'll find a lot of the youth for the first time. I mean, if you look through the military coup history of the continent, there wasn't, people always used to look with trepidation when they hear, "Oh my God, the military has taken over." Okay, but this past 2 years has been very, very different because, the youth are basically in a way saying, "Hey, you know what? Maybe we need to try something else." And that something else happens to be the Traores of the world, and that's why now even in so-called countries where there is elected leadership, they keep saying, "Hey, Traore, we need a Traore here." I mean, right on the street, you'll hear that people saying that, when they're getting tired of their elected lead president, for example, they'll say, "Hey, with this place, probably we need a Traore here to come and clean house," basically.
Tell about Traore's story. He's like 30 years old, 32, 35 maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Young guy.
Yeah, he's a young guy. I don't think he's in his early 30s. I haven't looked at his age. I never really pay attention. I just look at somebody, I see he's young. I mean, I know I read about his age, but he just rose through the ranks. He's a decorated military guy for sure. Mm-hmm. But I think, most people are not really paying attention to his past. I think people are just paying attention to, what he's actually doing on the ground, for the country right now. Okay, so there is question of paying the debt. Is basically just told the West, especially France. France has a very how can we put it diplomatically, has a very checkered history on its former colonies. So they basically Traore has given them the middle finger, told the French off, and told them, "Hey, you know what? See, you're out of here." And everybody's cheering that, because on the former, if you look at the history of the former colonies on the continent, the two main ones were the British and the French. The French colonies, I think, have fared worse in terms of their relationship with their former colonial master than the British ones. Not that there's anything better, it's just that the French continue to have a very strong hold on its former colonies.
And let me make an aside here, because what we do here, Tom, is we'll say slavery wasn't as bad in Mississippi as it was in Louisiana, right?
Yes.
We have stories about
there you go.
my people were slaves in Louisiana and didn't want to go to Alabama, or my people were slaves in Texas and didn't want to go to Missouri. All of it was slavery.
It
was slavery.
Brother, may I ask for the talking stick, please?
Please, yes, sir.
Brother
Tom, is
Tom.
that okay?
Good, yes. Yeah, Brother Tom, I think you're a very diplomatic guy, and I love you for that. I wish at times I was as diplomatic as you are. But first and foremost, the leader of Burkina Faso, the amiable president, I'll call him, is only 37 years old.
Yeah, there you go.
He's very young. And about giving the middle finger to France. France is one of the worst colonial masters, if you call them masters, in the world.
True.
The way they treat their colonies is almost like they treat them like not only slaves, but slaves on the field. Nothing can go. Basically, they want everything that is happening in your country to go through France. Economic development, the value of your currency,
the banking,
your minerals, everything that you own in your country, they control it first. If the gold in your country is worth $10 per ounce, just for an example, they want you to basically tell them you can have it for 1 cent instead of $10. So the balance of 1 cent and $10 goes to their pocket, then you can deal with the remaining 1 cent. Who in the world in the 21st century will allow that to happen? But that's what they are doing and continue to do to every single one of their colonial colonies. Except Burkina Faso and maybe 1 or 2 other countries in Africa. Africa is 1.5 billion people. The largest, in terms of landmass, of course, it's the largest landmass of all the continents. If you look at it. If you count China as a continent, because it's almost a continent by itself, but in Africa is about 3 times the size. But then Africa is 1.5 billion people. China is only 1.34 billion. So there are a lot of people, economics from the so-called Western world, that are basically saying that the world is just to even tap into 0.5% of the resources in Africa. And they've been pillaging that continent for the past, only God knows when. Now, if we can have 1 or 2 or 3 more
Traores.
Thank you enough, Africa will be a completely different thing. I'm praying for the brother. He's going to succeed because he's basically telling France, you cannot treat us like slaves anymore, and we're going to control our own destiny, period. I'll hand the stick over to either Brother Tom or Brother Al.
Brother Tom, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, Yele put it exactly the way it should be said, I guess. But for real, I mean, things, in fact, if you remember, there was an African Union ambassador called Arikana Chiombori. You might have some of your viewers might have heard about her. So she was until I believe 2 years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, during the pandemic there, she was the African Union ambassador to the United States. And she just got the itch, and she just started speaking her mind. The African Union back in Addis Ababa got very uncomfortable with her, and they had to let her go. But that was a blessing in disguise because yes, when you're the ambassador, of course you have to do the talking points of those who sent you, so which is okay. But I think after they fired her, she got her voice. And she started, highlighting the ills of of what the French, particularly the French, have been doing on the continent and its former colonies. I'll encourage everybody to look her up. There are a lot of videos that she's been giving a lot of interviews on the media.
Tom, while we're talking, maybe you could also find a clip
Yes,
and put it in the private chat, and
yes.
Garrett can show a minute or two. But I've heard her speak, and
Yes.
she's on fire. She's amazing.
Yes.
But there are so many new and powerful and clear voices emerging, both on the continent and the diaspora. Right, the sister that's the president of, which is one of the Caribbean nations. I'm just blanking on her name now, but she is fierce, right? And so people are talking about, our government is threatening to take away visas if Caribbean countries, for example, don't turn their back on Cuba. And the Caribbeans are saying, take the visa. We don't need it. We have our interests, and we are going to stand by our interests, and the chance to come to your country over the progress of my people. Get out of here. I'm glad that Dr. Oliver Williams has joined. Dr. Williams, good to see you, my friend. And you dropped into a conversation that I know that you just have a lot of authority about, and that's how we deal as African people around the world. And we're talking about the youth movement, particularly that of Burkina Faso, and countries being led by young people, and young people who are looking to Burkina Faso, no matter where they are on the continent, telling their local leadership that we need someone like Traore, who is not living for personal aggrandizement or to rob the wealth of the nation for his own personal and private profit, and to be a puppet of European masters. We need people that are committed to capturing and developing the resources of our nation for our nation. We don't need to be saddled with foreign debt that has no way out. It's a trickeration, right? World Bank, IMF. So, that's what we're talking about. Dr. B, you've been silent here. I'm going to pass the talk to you, and then bring Brother Daryl back in, and then bring Dr. Williams in. This
is truly a conversation. Can y'all still hear me?
Yes.
I just got knocked off the screen. Okay. What I kept thinking about as I was listening is, as a healer, there is a saying that you don't have to teach a wound how to heal. Just create a condition for an optimal condition for that healing to take place. And I'm seeing that the healing of many of us in the African diaspora is seeing the hope of young leaders. Many of us, and you're saying the young people are tired. Think about the old people. If they're tired, we're really, really, really tired. And so one of the things we got to see and hear and create is an opportunity that is value driven. Value driven. And I think that the younger generation, they are holding on to values. And the topic today is looking at renewal and restorative faith. So I see our faith being restored, not just by looking back, but by looking forward. And realizing that in perspective. So with that in line, I'm going to pass it to Dr. Daryl, and then hope he'll pass it to Dr. Oliver, because I believe as we talk about this environment, we need to articulate what are the characteristics of this environment. How can it be replicated in the U.S.? How can it be replicated in our homes, in our states, in our communities? How can we do that? So, Brother Dr. Daryl, I'll hand you the talking stick, and when you finish, please hand it to Dr. Williams, because we're about to show out on this show.
Well, I'll be super quick. As I was listening to the conversation, I thought about Raphael Warnock has a book called The Divided Mind of the Black Church. So in that book, he has a couple of terms piety and protest. And I think this whole thing about how do we live out our faith, but also how do we live out our faith in a political realm. And so, Dr. B, you're talking about how do we create an opportunity for young people. I'll just throw this out here. I think I'm 58 years old, and I need to have a succession plan for the person who's getting ready to take my place. So I need to look for somebody that's young, and I need to not be afraid of them being better than me or smarter than me.
There you go.
But I have to pour all I have into him or her and to empower and equip them with the knowledge of church work, but also this political work, this social justice work, this work. And to do that, you have to have a mind that's functioning in both arenas. And so sometimes the church is too one-dimensional. And I think one of the ways we create this optimal opportunity for healing is to pass the baton and be ready and don't hold on to all our knowledge, but give it out freely so they can pick up the baton and they can run, because they can run faster than we can. And I think they have some norms that are different from ours as well. They have some hindrances that are different from ours because we are stuck sometimes with the barriers or with the things that we really can't look past. And that's what this whole reimagining, redoing things over so you can really see clearly. So I'll pass it to you, Dr. Oliver Williams. There it is.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll receive it. And as you were talking, Dr. Gillespie, one of the things that I thought about was that song by Sweet Honey in the Rock. And we talk about your children are not your children. They're the sons and daughters of life longing for itself. They see you, but they see through you. And then it is a verse that talks about, you have your thoughts, but they have their own thoughts.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that they may be able to see things in ways that you don't because they're in a different space. I know that's true with my son, Sam. Sam is into certain types of music. He got raised on James Brown and all kinds of Earth, Wind, and Fire and all that. But he got this other music that I don't get. Some of it I like, some of it I don't get. And so there are things that he's able to sort of explore and see the world differently, the things that he's anxious about. I try to calm him because I say, well, I think about my dad's life that was much more challenging than mine.
That's right.
And I grew up in a time that was much more challenging than Sam's. But Sam's, I don't know what's going to happen in the future when he has children, but I know that we've done the same thing to survive all these years. We've stood on the shoulders of our ancestors. They did things in ways and in circumstances that we didn't imagine at the time, and some of us hadn't had to live through. But my dad had to live through, and I heard those stories. And the ways that the community came together for one another was something that's real important. But at the same time, there are ways that we did things differently than our predecessors. And so I just think about having courage, but also learning how to depend on ourselves and changing the narrative of how we have had to grow up and survive and thrive. One of the things that's interesting to me about the person that's in the White House right now is that he talks about DEI, and I get really angry about that. And the people that he talks about are the best, and they're absolutely not the best. The other thing I think about is the fact that he's not the best. The only, I'm going to say this, the only reason why he got into the White House, because he's a white man that ends up dealing with and presenting racism as a thing that people want to glom onto And what's the other thing is the fact that he didn't produce anything, and neither did Elon Musk. They bought things from other people, and then they keep denying the contributions of people over time that that are from diverse populations, which is what a white supremacist and Ku Klux Klan person would do.
Yes.
Yep.
And the other thing that I struggle with is the fact that he talks about Christianity and he talks about a white Christian nationalist, which is an oxymoron. You know, the reality is the fact that the God that they serve is not the God that I serve. They serve the devil, as far as I'm concerned. And so if you just end up using the Bible to challenge the things that it talks about in terms of immigrants, in terms of neighborhoods, in terms of loving people, in terms of dealing with people who have challenges in different ways, and how you contribute to them, you don't strip it away from them.
Dr. Oliver, that's brilliant. I don't know where to even start picking on all the points that you have raised, but that's a huge, I mean, that's awesome. But I'm going to pick on about one or two of them.
Okay.
Christianity, frankly, the way he has described, the man knows nothing about Christianity, first and foremost. When somebody tells you, Dr. B, what the Bible he was quoting, what was that?
2 Corinthians.
2 Corinthians. It's called 2 Corinthians. So if somebody doesn't even know how to say 2 Corinthians, you know they've never been to church or they don't even know what religion is all about. Then if you are a human being who knows the ABC of religion in the world, you will know that civilization started at the point, River Nile. Where's River Nile, my friend? It's in Africa.
Yeah.
So if every single one of us originated from Adam and Eve, then every single person in this world is an African, period. And if you don't know that, go check it. Okay? Then, in terms of Ibrahim Traore, the glorious days in Nigeria were when military leaders ruled that country. Those were the glorious days in Nigeria. As the largest country in Africa, I'm glad that the likes of Ibrahim Traore are seizing power, and they are truly turning Africa into the next economic developed spot in the world. The man is doing wonders. If we can just get 4 or 5 of them, Africa will be a completely different thing. I hand over the stick.
Yeah, let me play this clip. Jared, will you play the clip that Tom put in the private chat? Former African Union ambassador. Let's check that out. And Tom, you can talk about it. Give her name again. And Jared, can you play it?
Yeah, but while he's trying to get that, I can add a little bit of what Yele just said there. One of the things we keep praying actually for some of this, especially this weekend where we're, being reflective, being that it's Easter, is that people like Traore, who are very fearless and, they really don't give an F about anybody, especially from outside the continent, is that, a few people will also, because we pray for him, because we feel that, of course, they'll come after him like the way they did with the Sankaras and, and people like that. But what we're actually praying for is that even if they take him out, now that because we're talking about succession here, but on another context, that, whoever comes will also be the same. So it will not matter who they end up killing. Another Traore will still emerge from the same circle. So that's what we keep praying for the continent this year. And then since Oliver brought up about Mr. Trump, the thing I fear about this man, to be honest with you, is that he'll do to this economy what he did to his businesses.
Yes,
that's really what I fear, because I know people keep praising that he's this smart businessman and whatever, but really, those who have actually followed the history of his business, quote unquote, empire, I mean, that's probably, if that's the track record, I fear for the economy of this country.
Yep.
Me too.
Yeah.
Dr. B, can you go ahead and share that? Can you, if it'll let you? You're muted.
Mute.
Dr. B, you are muted.
She's trying to get this. We want to see this video. It'd be great if we can get it.
Let me see if I can put it now. I think it's
Okay.
ready.
All right, thanks.
Okay. I'm going to hit present and see if it shows up.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
What a wonderful conversation. Thanks to all of you. This has been really, really rich. And thanks to those who are giving us a thumbs up and hearts. So we appreciate that. If you are listening on any of the platforms, let us know who you are, where you are. Drop a comment, at least say hello, from wherever you are, and let us know where, that you're involved in this conversation and in the work as well. We thank you. So we're trying to load up this one video that would be awesome to get a few minutes of anyway. I don't know if our showrunner is able to do it.
It's not working.
Not working. Okay.
But I could see it. It's a wonderful, looks like a wonderful video, and powerful. So anybody can take the HTTPS link, and they should use it to look at it a little bit later.
Let's put the link in the. Let me put the link in the
public chat. Yeah.
Yes.
Comments. Can you put it there, Tom? You
can put it in the. Yeah, I can put it. I can join the chat and put it for whoever is viewing. Okay. Yeah. Let's see.
So, Sam Cook, thank you for watching, for your comments. Michelle, thank you so much. Sean Lewis, thank you for watching your comments. Appreciate it. And you all are welcome to join the program whenever you want to. Dr. Darrell, let me sort of bring it back around to you then. So here's the thought I had too. One of the interviews, who was supposed to be here that couldn't make it today was my former reporter and a friend of mine and a pal, Ladu Jada Gubek. He's from South Sudan. Came out of the era they call it the so-called Lost Boys, where a lot of South Sudanese came to this country. And he introduced me to Riek Machar. Riek Machar was the vice commander of the South Sudanese People's Army, Liberation Army, SPLA, and also vice chair of the South Sudan People's Movement, the political organization, vice president of the country when they moved from away from being ruled by the North, Khartoum, Sudan, the nation. One of the things that Riek Machar told me that kind of blew me away was that when he and John Garang, another university professor, left the university, they were teachers at University of Sudan at Khartoum, and went to the bush to begin a multi-year war against what he called Arabized Africans in the north. And he said that it was a war that cost over 5 million lives. And when they got to where they could move towards peace, one of the priorities was to demilitarize young people. He said that they recruited and employed child soldiers. Children 9, 10, 12 years old were trained to kill and did killing in the war. And when the war ended, what they needed was a priority of how to decompress, to de-escalate these children. And so two things come to mind. One is that, I'm not making the equation, but I'm just talking out loud. There was news a month ago or maybe a year ago about youth gangs in North Minneapolis that call themselves the Taliban.
Okay.
What does it mean? That language, what's the notion of Taliban? And how does that relate to the lived experience of young people in Nigeria, in Burkina Faso, in Sudan, who are under arms? And how can we allow a society to trivialize both the lives and the potential to do good or bad of young people, right? There's something more that needs to be considered. And that is, the sanctity of all these lives, but also the seriousness with which we should be guaranteeing they have futures that work for them. I'm just throwing it out. Dr. Darrell, what do you think?
Woo, you're going to put all that on. That's well, so let me tell you the first thought that came to my mind, because I think that's important. I said it earlier when we talked about Lent, when we do reflection, we talk about thinking about our own personal lives. So we're talking about kids, and let's go with adults. The first thing I'm saying, what are the adults doing to help these kids in North Minneapolis feel loved, feel safe, feel connected? And that might seem like such, oh man, that's easy. But I would go back to, how can I help somebody else feel safe or feel loved or feel connected if I'm not? And so we are having an expectation of grown-ups to do something that they're not even equipped to do. And so nobody seemingly wants to take on, because it's extremely hard work to start. You're talking about demilitarizing somebody, but it's like kids who've been exposed to stuff too young. They cannot forget what has happened. But we have to somehow, as Dr. B would say, we have to do a cognitive restructuring. We have to help them get in their minds, and we have to put some images, and we have to do some role modeling and some loving and some conversations with these children to help them change their focus. We have to give, if we're going to take gang activity, or even I would say the activity of finding a common bond, if we're going to take that away, what are we going to replace it with? And so I think that's some of the things that we have to start to think about when we are reimagining the work. And the thing about the church, it has to be bigger than Bible study and praying for them. It's more than that. And that's with everybody. We have to figure out a way to really be in the lives of these young people who seemingly will push us away because we come in with lame strategies. We have to be able to come up with some things that are able to come into their world and us have a touch point with them. That's what I would say off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I'll pass it to Dr. Oliver. I mean, I don't know if I'm supposed to, but I'm passing it.
Yeah, that's fine. Great.
He has something to say.
Yeah, I had a chance to listen to Coretta Scott King. She did a lecture when I was at the University of Pittsburgh, and there was a young man that was revolutionary who was in the audience, and he was talking about taking up weapons to fight the power, and so one of the things that she said was, structurally that's a problem, because in terms of militarily, there's no way that we would be able to deal with that in terms of looking at the force that will come towards us. Find other ways to be able to think about looking at a problem and approaching the problem. And that, to me, when that young man was saying that, he was saying it from the perspective of a young person who would think that you could end up fighting the power in one way militarily, but not thinking out the fact that you got a structure that you've got to deal with. I look at what's happening with the Palestinians and the fact that, Netanyahu knows that he's wrong. He's trying to kill those people. And I'm not saying that Hamas was foolish in terms of the way that they dealt with it. As a matter of fact, Netanyahu knew that they were planning that, but didn't do anything to try to shut it down in the first place.
Yes.
The whole plan was to destroy the other
Palestinian.
community.
Yeah.
And that would be the strategy in terms of what Trump would like to do with people of color in the United States. And people, that we've really got to explore the fact that this is a white supremacist trying to do this.
Oh yeah.
And we haven't dealt with it. I mean, we've in some way normalized it by leaving a lot of that stuff out because he's got no humanity.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we've got to help young people think about ways to be able to deal with this. But I really think that a lot of it is turning to ourselves.
Can I get to stick just 1 second before we go?
Wait.
I just want to put this out there. We didn't talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion until the people who are now the global majority,
Right.
people
Yes.
of color, started gaining in numbers and power. So
Yes.
suddenly, this idea that was brought about by white men who wanted to make sure that we have values of, if we have diversity, that there's equity for them and inclusion for them. And that's what I think has been driving the fight. They don't want, when they found out that wasn't going to work, they just started figuring out how can we just beat them by sheer numbers. Well, we let them go to jail so they can't reproduce. We make sure that women who are pregnant die in pregnancy, especially Black women, and we make sure we force white women to have more white babies. So they're trying to play that number game. And then we think about our renewal, our restorative faith. Our faith has to be in the God within us.
Yeah.
The God within us, who knows right from wrong and who knows how to fight.
Right.
And that's where I see us in warring against principalities, powers in high places, to rewrite the script of what it means to be prosperous and powerful as a person of color, especially those of us of African descent. So with that, bye-bye, Al, I'm going to give you the talking stick, but I could not leave this conversation without saying that.
Well, I think you dropped the talking stick. You dropped the mic, Dr. B. I think we're done. Thank you so much. I'm Al McFarlane. Thanks, Brother Dr. Oliver, Brother Dr. Carroll, Brother Yelly, and Brother Tom Guitar. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you all.